Hey guys. What's up? Hey Emmy. Emmy, can you hand me my Bible? It's right there behind that pink box. Thank you. You guys. Hey, look at that. New year. Start strong. That's what we're going to talk about. I know, right? It's a starting line. Yeah, it's clever. I know. It was subtle, too. No, it's Christmas. Remember? Yeah. Finishing line would be like Easter. Or maybe right after Easter. Yeah, because, finish line, run the race. Anyway, yeah, so, but, hey, so new year, new things to do. We talked about one word. And actually today, again, is part of communion and the opportunity to come up with a one word. If you didn't do that yet, we want to give you that opportunity during communion at the end of service. Over on the table by the couches in this corner of the room is our canvas that we had on the stage last week. And so if you have a one word, or if you haven't come up with one and you didn't write it, or you came up with one and you were over there, or you didn't come, whatever. If you haven't put it on the canvas yet, do it. And go write one over there, and we're going to give it a couple more weeks so that we get everybody, so we know not everybody can make it every week. And then once we have what we feel like is all of them, we're going to go ahead and set that up on a thing and mount it on the wall and help us, remember it for more than like a week, because that's what happens. But you guys, start strong. This year, as we're already, people are already floundering on resolutions and everything else, we wanted to spend January talking about the things that would help us to have a great year, to set foundations and patterns that would establish a good year, a good system for building our year into something worth living this year. Last week, we talked about living a life worthy of the calling you've received. That's in Ephesians 4. But Paul calls us to live a life worthy of the calling you've received as a Christian. And so I want to look at a bit of how we do that, and then, both biblically and then practically what that ends up looking like for us. And so if you have a Bible, we don't have this in the Bible app this service, but if you have a Bible, if you want to open up to Exodus 16, I know it's fun. Old Testament, this is good. Exodus 16. If you don't have a Bible, throw your hand up in the air, and we have this magical ability to make it appear in your hand. It's a straight up miracle, people. It's called adult volunteers, and they actually volunteer to serve you here. It's crazy. I know. I can't believe it either. They keep showing up. It's awesome. Exodus 16. No, it's at the beginning. It's the second book of the Bible. What? Starting at the beginning. Page 33. Like, we're early, man. Like, this is early up in the Bible. Last service we were in like the 500s. I said last service for middle school it was like on page like 590 or something like that. Today we on 33. Okay? If you have a Bible on your phone, go ahead and pull that out. Pull out your flat screen and use that. If you don't have a Bible in your hands, you may want to follow this, because I'm going to skip around a little bit, but I'm going to largely be reading through this. And I found that it's a little bit easier to follow along if you're kind of reading along with it. Weird as it is, like, I love my digital stuff, but it's much easier to retain information if you read it off paper than a screen. Did you know that? They've done studies and found that out. That's crazy. So I try to read my physical Bible as much as possible, and to help me do that, I actually got a present of like a reader's Bible. It's like larger font and like all laid out in one page, like without the verse numbers, and it's legit, and it's in 6 volumes, like split up by topic. Anyway, come to my office, I'll show you. It's cool. All right, Exodus 16. Check this out. The Exodus. Anybody familiar with the Exodus? You guys ever heard of this thing? Exodus, yeah. Moses, parting of the Red Sea. There were some tablets. He broke the first set. It's not like in Monty Python, or not Monty Python, Mel Brooks, when he does History of the World, Part 1, and like Moses comes down and he's like, 15, I have 15 commandments for you. And then he drops one and he's like, 10 commandments. Because one of them broke. No, actually Moses threw down and broke the first 10 and then had to go get new ones because the people were so dumb. But before that happened, we have the manna and the quail. The Israelites are wandering around in the desert. And what happens is, like, if anybody had the chance to start strong, it was Israel. Like think about, like, Exodus so far, all this, it's been 15 chapters leading up to this, and not that they, like, lived it in chapters, like, okay, now leveling up, chapter 16, you know, like, it doesn't happen like that, you know, but they're going out, and, like, in their lives so far, they were slaves. These people were just recently slaves in Egypt, which was pretty brutal. And they had to do stuff like apparently build things like pyramids. And so that was great. But they were slaves having to do all sorts of crazy construction and everything else. They were being beaten and whipped and all this and starved, and they were not happy. And despite what they say here. And then Moses comes along. He makes things worse for a little while because he tells Pharaoh to let them go. He says no, right? Then the plagues come. That's exciting. And then they leave after the last plague kills off the firstborn of every family in Egypt except for the Israelites. So it's a pretty intense time that they've been living in. And the plagues were serious. Like we've never seen anything like what these plagues look like. Like the worst locust holocaust that we've ever seen of crops is not near as bad as the plague of locusts that they saw here. Like, it was brutal, crazy, supernatural, end of the world style stuff. So they get through all the plagues. Then they get to the edge of the sea, the Red Sea. The sea opens before them. They walk through it on dry land, which is this huge, intense, amazing miracle, which it's a good thing that didn't happen now because they all would have drowned after everyone's stopping for selfie after selfie next to the wall of water they're walking by. They're like, wait, look, the whale's going by. I need a picture. You know, like, would have been ridiculous. So they get all the way through. They get to the other side. They sing some songs. They celebrate. They're really excited. And then they do this. The whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin. Not like they came to a place it's not like they showed up in Vegas. Like, it's just the desert of Sin, which happens to be spelled the same way as our English word, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they'd come out of Egypt. They'd been out of Egypt for like 75 days, 2 months, 15 days. Or no, 15th day of the second month, 45 days. Not long. Like 45 days is not that long. By the way, keep in mind here, this scenario, while we're reading this, they're grumbling and complaining like, why did God bring us out here to die? The way God is leading them, the way they know where they're going, it says they set out. They didn't just decide, you know what, camping here sucks, man. There's ants. I'm leaving. And they packed up and like moved. There's like 1 million people. Can you imagine camping with 1 million people? They have like entire battalions of like this whole drawing of like how everybody's supposed to be set up. And they have all this hierarchy of leadership so they can get everybody in the right places so they know they have everyone, so they can find everybody, so everybody has a place and all of that. And I mean, it takes a while to get moving. But here's how it works. They're following a pillar of cloud and fire, like a tornado that never like dies off or destroys them, that just like cruises through the desert and then it stops. I'm assuming it goes up into the sky at that point and like disappears for a bit. But wherever it stops, that's where they set up the tabernacle. Then they surround that with the rest of Israel. The tabernacle is where Moses goes to meet with God. So wherever the tornado thing stops, they put the tent there. Moses goes in to meet face to face with God because that's where the glory of God is. And then when it's ready to go, the tornado thing starts coming again. They get the tent out of the way, and then the pillar of cloud and fire shows up again. It's cloud by day, fire by night, and it cruises around and shows them where to go. And it's like the finger of God, like reaching down and like tracing a line to show them where to go. It's crazy. So imagine that context, like this supernatural event is constantly occurring in your life, and this is where you end up feeling. In the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, if only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death. Really? God is making supernatural tornado lines in the dirt to lead you all the way across the flippin' desert after splitting an ocean in half to let you walk across it on dry ground and then drowning. As soon as you were out, last Israelite steps out and the whole ocean goes back together and destroys Pharaoh's army. And all of a sudden, you're like, I don't think God brought us out here for anything but to kill us. Nah, he could have did that already. He didn't need to bring you out here. Then the Lord said to Moses, I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. On the 6th day, they are to prepare what they bring in, and that is to be twice as much as they gather on the other days. We're a little short on time, so I'm going to paraphrase a bit here. God says, I'm going to send this stuff. It's called manna. The reason they call it manna, if you read on through chapter 16, it comes down from heaven. They wake up in the morning, and when the dew is gone, there's this weird bread stuff on like the plants and whatnot. And they go out and they find it, and manna is the Hebrew word for WTH, is that. It means literally, what is it? They went, what's that? And they're like, I don't know. Let's eat some, what's that? Manna. They had no name for it. It's just stuff that God put there. But they were able to ground it up and kind of make it like flour and make bread out of it. So they go out and he says, go out and gather it. Every morning you need to go out, and by the time the dew is completely gone, this will have evaporated and been gone also. It's weird, but if you collect it, it turns to bread. It doesn't evaporate. Like supernatural event, God's provision. Just starts happening at this point. Didn't happen until then. Happens right now. It keeps happening for the next 40 years until they get out of the desert and get to a place where they can get food. Only happened during that time. Scientists have looked back, people who like hate the Bible, they've looked at it and they go like, we can't find any evidence of stuff like that in the desert. It didn't happen until right there when they complained about food. Then it went for 40 years. Then when they got out of the desert, the manna stopped. It's right that it doesn't happen anymore. It wasn't a thing that happens. It's not supposed to be in the desert. It was weird stuff that God made. What is that? I don't know. Eat it. Here's the thing. He said, I'm going to put this out to test them. He wants this to be his people. He's called them out to be his people. He has claimed, you will be my people, and I will be your God, and I will lead you, and you will have blessing and glory and praise under me. You will do all of this as long as you follow my instruction and follow my lead and worship me and no other false gods. Just me. To see if they will follow things like that. He gives them a test. He says, every day you have to go out and get this stuff. If you go out too late in the day, it will already be gone. There will be enough for everyone to gather, just enough for you to feed yourself that day. You have to not get enough for tomorrow. Only get for today. Trust me, I'll bring you more tomorrow. Some people didn't believe God. They were like, he brought us out here to hurt us, and there's no food out here. I want more. So they gathered too much, and they kept it, and they made everything they needed, and it was fantastic day one. Then they woke up in the morning. They kind of overslept, and they were like, I'm not getting that stuff. That was a pain in the butt yesterday. And they went over to their little jar where they had it, and they opened it up, and it had worms and mold. It was gross. That happened a few times throughout the week. When it got to the 6th day, God changed the rules of reality on his miraculous bread stuff that comes out of nowhere. He said, today, go out and get twice as much. Make half of what you need today, keep the other half for tomorrow. Tomorrow's the Sabbath. Do not work on the Sabbath. I will not provide any manna. You need to get it today. This one time during the week, it'll last. They try it. Some people were stupid. They didn't listen again. They went, no, I already kept that stuff overnight. It was nasty. My pot still smells funny. That was 5 days ago. So they only got what they needed for today. Then they woke up Saturday morning. It's Jewish Sabbath, Saturday. They woke up Saturday morning. Everybody else is sleeping in. They know they already got manna in the jar ready for today. Some of these people didn't trust God. They got up. They went out. There's no freaking manna. They weren't supposed to get up and go out and collect it. It's good. The stuff that God provided and said would be good is good for the 2nd day. But then Sunday comes around, they grab too much, wait till Monday, it's nasty again. It only works that one day of the week. 40 years it works like this. It's crazy. Another thing it gets to. So it says, verse 6, Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, in the evening you will know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt, and in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling against him. And so, verse 8, you will know that it was the Lord when he gives you meat to eat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning. He says, each night, you will know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt. Each night you will have meat, and at the meal, this is kind of like the idea of like praying over your meal. Each evening, look back and thank God for what you've received, because you will have received blessing from God. And you will look back on the day, you will look back on the journey that you're on, and you will thank God for bringing you out of Egypt. But each morning you will rise up and seek fresh the glory of God. How do you start strong for a year? You follow this pattern. They had to do this for 40 years, and those who followed him were blessed. Those who followed him did not die in the desert. Many people did die in the desert. Almost everybody over the age of 20 at this point lived to be 60 in the desert and then died at most. Most people who were of age at the beginning of this time, shortly after this, they send spies into the promised land. They decide they can't do it. So God tells them, all right, you get to wander for 40 years. When all y'all old people that are stupid die off, I'll send your kids in there and they can have it. And that's exactly what he does. The only two people that said, oh yeah, we can do this, got to survive and live into the promised land. Everybody else at that point was 60 or younger who goes into the promised land, because everybody else spent 40 years in the desert and died. But I want to focus in on that, remembering God in the evening and seeking fresh glory in the morning. Every day, seek the glory of God. Every day. That doesn't mean you have to get up and read 10 chapters of scripture and pray and preach and write a sermon and write a blog and do a video thing and go feed the homeless and do everything. You don't have to do every single possible thing. But do some things every day. Something to connect with God every single day in the morning. I'm not a morning person. I'm preaching this to me. I've preached out of this passage before, and I hate it because I don't like being up in the morning. I don't like doing stuff in the morning, and it's hard for me to read my Bible in the morning. But when I don't, my day kind of sucks. And when I do this, much as I hate being up in the morning, I have the best days. And I don't mean everything's good. I mean there's that, the Bible talks about, this inner peace that surpasses all understanding. That I can get through because I know Jesus is with me. And no matter what else goes on in my day, I'm right. Not I'm right, deal with it, but I'm in the right place to get through it properly. So, a couple of ways you could do this. One, you may have seen on some of our social media and stuff, if you go on Instagram on the Pantano HSM channel, I believe there's a link for this. If you go on my personal Instagram, Brian is Unfallen. Brian with an I is Unfallen. It's a clothing brand and stuff that I started a long time ago, and it's just been my screen name thing forever. But if you follow me on there, I skipped the last couple days because I was really sick this weekend. Y'all didn't want to see that. I would have been like, hey, so today I'm that's no good. So, but today I'll post one after church. But I've been doing video blogs, and we've got almost 30 people, I think, now reading along with us in the Bible plan on the Bible app. And so you can join, add me as a friend or whatever, you just click the link, and you can join this reading plan with us. It's the Essential 100. It's 100 essential verses, kind of a survey of the whole Bible, kind of taking us through. And part of what I'm going to be doing is posting a video each day that sort of ties in hey, I'm going to, this is the passage we're in. Here's kind of the tie-in piece, why this is important to the story, and then my own personal reflection on it of just outside of just the tie-in to the bigger story, this is what speaks to me on this. But then other people, we can see each other's comments. It's been really cool so far. Anybody in here doing that? I think a few of you are, but it's been neat to watch. I've been seeing people Amy's posted a few things, and Ann's been posting comments, Lainey, one of our other leaders, and a few other people have been posting. It's cool to see other people comment man, this is what God's saying to me here. And so you can be encouraged by that, but then you also get a little bit of accountability, because how many of you know, it's a little easier to stick with something when somebody's like, hey, did you do that? And you're like, oh yeah, I forgot. So we got that too. Another thing, maybe what you need to do is go and ask God, what do you need me to focus on? Band, if you can come up here, we're gonna get going on on the last song here in just a moment. We're going to head into communion. Maybe it's just that you need to wake up and pray every morning. Maybe you need to pray every night too. I think at minimum you need to do that. I think Bible reading needs to be a regular part, maybe not every day, maybe not a ton of it every day. If you do the E100 with us, it's not that much reading. The first day it was Genesis 1 and 2. I think that's one of the longest ones. And that took us about maybe 8 minutes to read through. If you read it slow because you haven't read it before, it's like maybe 10 minutes. It doesn't take that long. You read it and then you go, man, what is God saying to me right there? And you just, type it out, share it with everyone else. But get on that plan. Do that with us. Do something. There's nothing holy about that plan. Like that one's not more better than anything else. But it's one way. Pray, worship, be alone. Go hang out with God. Read your Bible. Do some devotions. Listen to worship music. I don't know. Be quiet and just listen to what he wants to say to you. But be in a regular routine. In fact, it doesn't have to be the same thing. The rest of the series is going to be talking about different kind of categories for spiritual disciplines. How do you start strong? Because look, how many of you have ever seen somebody who's like super into CrossFit? Like some of you might know Malachi. He comes here and he's like all jacked all of a sudden. Like, you know what happened? He didn't just like go to CrossFit once and walk out like all beefcake. Like, that's not how that works. You don't go do like 50 burpees and then you're like, dude, I'm so yoked. Look at my abs. I can't believe that. I just did like 10 sit-ups and I burned off like 300 pounds. It's crazy. You can't just show up on Sunday and half pay attention and fall asleep and also Snapchat and then walk away and be like, no, I'm totally good with Jesus. True story. You can't just show up to one demo day at CrossFit and be like, oh yeah, I'm CrossFit champ. You got to do it every day. It's good to change it up. Look at the CrossFit people. They never do the same thing twice. They're always doing all sorts of craziness. Change it up all the time. That's great spiritually. You can work yourself out like that too, your spirit. But you got to develop it. You got to work on your faith. You got to keep yourself right with God. Because even though you know Jesus, even though you have that seal and that security of knowing that you're with him, there's still the world around you. There's still this corruption around you. You still live in a fallen body. There is temptation and just a tendency towards sin and apathy and nonsense. We've got to work at it and stay strong. Just like if you leave your body alone, if you get super ripped, you don't just stay ripped. You got to keep working out. You ever see like old guys that used to be super buff and they're just like large and fat? They're just out of shape if they don't stick with it. You have to keep with it. Same spiritually. You don't just like get all tight with God and then be like, cool, I'll see you in heaven in like 3 decades later. That's not how it works. So let's do this. Let's start strong. Let's take this time of communion to find out, to pray about some of those ways that like, God, I'm going to dedicate my year to you. I want to start strong. I want to finish well. I want to be like God had called Israel to be. They will remember me in the evening. They will seek my glory fresh in the morning. Let's seek that fresh bread, that fresh word from God. Matthew 4:4 says, Jesus responding to Satan of all people, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. This needs to be an integral part of your devotions and study with God. Your time with God needs to include getting to know his word. But it's not the only thing. The relationship with God is what you should be building from this. If you haven't done your one word yet, or if you want to go commit your year to God in a particular focus or theme, go ahead and do that when you do communion as well. It's over at that table there. I'm going to pray and we'll end with worship and communion. Father, thank you. Thank you for your son. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for your death on the cross that has given us new life. Thank you for the opportunity to seek your will and your ways through your word. God, speak to us through your word this year. Speak your vision, your calling to us. Give us the means to live a life worthy of the calling we have received. And help us to hold each other accountable, to stay with that, to seek you fresh each day, to call each other back into life with you if we step out. God, make us devoted to you, like the song we sang already today. My sole devotion, just to worship you and be with you, to know you forever. In Jesus' name, amen.